I am Christina Sorrento. I'm the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division, and this is the DRC meeting for Clarksburg Chase. Your lead reviewer is Jonathan Casey. The purpose of the meeting is for you to ask any questions about the comments that you received last week. I'll ask Jonathan to highlight any of the major issues and then turn it over to the applicant. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded. So go ahead, Jonathan.
Good morning. I am Jonathan Casey with Up County Planning. And so we have 3 plans: Chase preliminary plan, site plan, and FCP. In general, there were no glaring concerns other than something that came up at the pre-preliminary stage, which would be the pedestrian connection from the development over to New Clarksburg Road. There's some information about why that wasn't provided, but that is probably our biggest area of concern, this application.
Okay. Christine, do you want us to jump in then?
Yes, go right ahead, Bob.
Okay, so I'm Bob Harris, but I'm not going to do much of the talking today. Max Potember from Lennar is on the call, as are the engineers who are working with us. And Max is just going to, respond to and question you, excuse me, on a few of the issues. And then, Jonathan, we can talk about that pathway at kind of the conclusion, if that works.
Sure, it's your meeting.
Okay, go ahead, Max.
Morning, everyone. I appreciate everyone's time, and I appreciate the thorough comments that we received. I just wanted to kind of walk by each individual plan with a couple of comments that we're looking for clarity on. I wanted to start with the preliminary plan. The first comment we received was regarding the TIS. The TIS was submitted with the submission package, but I believe there is a comment that it needs to be reviewed prior to comprehensive comments being received. I just wanted to make sure, just clarity, if it's still in review currently, or if you hadn't received that.
Who did that comment come from?
It came from State Highway, but I also believe we had a kind of a duplicate comment from DOT.
Yeah, let me just double check. We're still reviewing the traffic study. Our comments should be due in early January 11th, possibly before. I mean, I did ask the reviewers to try to expedite their review, but it shouldn't be any later than January 11th.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
we think it's pretty clear or clean because so many road improvements were installed relatively recently by the Cavan Branch project, but we will look forward to any comments.
The next comment that we had that we wanted to get a little bit of clarity on was, and I'm looking for the actual comment to reference, but it was basically referring to the 3 MPDU products or MPDU units that are in succession in the kind of townhome stick farthest to the west. And I believe the comment was to potentially move one of the MPDUs to a different location. I just want to confirm that that was the intent of the comment.
That was condition or comment number 11 from Housing and Community Affairs.
Thanks, Bob.
DHCA.
Yeah, do we have anyone from DHCA?
Hi, this is Maggie Gallagher from DHCA. My coworker Adrian Thompson reviewed this project, so I'm not 100% sure what the intent of the comment was. I know he's on the line. He might be having some troubles with his microphone, but we will follow up with an email if he doesn't have if he's not able to chime in.
Okay, that'd be great.
Just to give you a little heads up on that, I suspect it's driven by the general requirement to disperse MPDUs, and
Yep.
we're well aware of that. I think the MPDUs are pretty well dispersed here, and it looked like it was focusing merely on the unit number 39 on the left of the screen there, or 39, 40, or 41, one of those three, suggesting that it be moved somewhere else. We are going to look at that, but there are some limitations here because of the widths and depths of these blocks and that sort of thing. So, but we'll look at it and get back to you to see if we can respond, unless we hear otherwise about what the comment is intended to address.
Yep, just looking at it briefly right now, I would assume it's because it looks like you have that 39 through 41, and then on the opposite side, 40 and 39, and that's sort of, a cluster of what we would consider 5 right there. And typically the language is kind of vague in chapter 25A, to be honest, but what we sort of use to do reasonable distribution is no more than 3 or 4 in a row in a cluster. And I assume that's where the comment's coming from, but again, this wasn't my project to review, so we'll follow up in an email.
Okay, we're going to look at it further from an engineering standpoint to see what, if anything, we can do.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
The next comment I did want to discuss a little bit further was the request for driveway flares on the single-family detached homes. Currently, we're not showing driveway flares, mainly to reduce our overall impervious on the site. And I wanted to get a little bit more clarity to see if that's an acceptable practice, or if those driveway flares are ultimately going to be required.
This is Rebecca from DOT. That's our standard requirement. I think that goes back to, are these roads actually going to be able to be public or not? And did you provide centerline radiuses on these plans? A centerline
Healy or
radius for the
Kyle,
roads?
Healy or Kyle,
Yeah,
can you
the
answer
center
that?
line radius is shown. I think we need to add some stationing to it. That didn't
Do
show
you,
up for some reason.
can you show me where it's shown? Because we didn't see it that I'm aware of.
You see where this 28.5 is on the screen? It's kind of on that line there, right?
Right here.
It has a little dash in it. It goes through the middle of the grading.
So what's the radius? So where's the radius? Where is the horizontal centerline radius for the road on the curves?
That's the center line. Center
And
line.
I'm not asking for the center, I'm asking for what is the radius?
Well, there's radius. What I was saying is we need to make sure the labels show up on the center line radii. But I think we were talking about you were asking about the center line, and we have that here. They are intended to be public roads.
If you have the centerline radius shown on here,
Around
like what is it?
We have them shown, but they're not labeled.
Can you just say what they are? Does anyone know what they are? Just so we can say one.
I know the minimum, when this went through pre-preliminary plan, it was discussed that, these were single loaded public streets, that they were supposed to be, having these 2 intersections, so they were short, roads that wouldn't go to very long, and we were keeping the 100 minimum radius, which we'll have to put forward as part of a design exception package, we understand, with the cross sections. But the intention is to have these public, which they say public road A, and the intention is to have them be, to a tertiary standard.
Okay, so how many units do you have on the whole roads, on all these roads? How many units total is in the development?
101 units total. 2 of them
So
are
that doesn't meet
on-
tertiary, that's a secondary.
No.
residential standard.
Only 9 of
Wait.
them off that road, 99.
Yeah, there's only
Okay.
99 here. There's 2 over here, 1
Yeah.
here, 1 here.
101 total, 2 are on,
Yes.
external.
So
And
that's a
there's 2
secondary road?
100-foot radii. You can see them in this overall where the 100-foot radii are. The other ones are larger radii.
You didn't provide the centerline radius written on any of the plans, so we don't know. DOT has to make a determination if we are willing to accept them. The roads don't connect to anything else. They don't meet minimum standards. If they're not safe, and we've done this in other similar developments in this area, if they're not deemed safe, then DOT will not be willing to take them on. So we had told
Okay.
you when you went through preliminary that we didn't agree with the radii that you were showing. We assumed it was less than needing the standard.
What is the standard, Rebecca?
For a secondary residential street, which we don't use, but it's 150 feet. Because 75, a tertiary street is less than 75 units. So because you have more than 75 units, we would say this is a secondary roadway, generally speaking.
Well, I think
Okay.
we have two different public streets. And I thought the discussion we had was to widen the street. So we did that. But
No, that might have been one discussion because it's supposed to be a minimum 21 feet and 29 with parking, or 28 with parking. But the
Right, so we
radius
made
has
that
always been an
adjustment.
issue.
Okay. Well, is that correct though, with two different streets though, that that the minimum radius could be reduced down to 100?
At this point, I'd asked you to, I mean, the problem is that you didn't provide enough information for us to make an evaluation, and anything, we didn't determine the layout at pre-preliminary. So this is where we're looking at the layout of it, and we have a problem with the radius that you're showing.
Okay. Well, we will put the radius on there and get that to you, Rebecca, and then look forward to a further comment from you. But we kind of got off track because that may be related to the driveway flares, but
So you have to
comment.
provide the driveway. There's no reason not to provide driveway flares. It doesn't reduce the imperviousness that much. And all they're going to do is run on they're going to run over the curb, or they're going to run over they're going to run on the grass. So at this time, the flare should be provided. There's no reason not to.
Just one point, that this is a 6% cap. So we're dealing with very, very small numbers. Once you add up all of the units, that could potentially have quite an effect on the overall imperviousness. But that's something I will let you all.
I'm not willing to remove those. If you guys want to make them private and make the roads private, then that's planning, but that's not why reduce transportation needs that are necessary to provide safe and efficient access to the properties. And that's what we're talking about.
Rebecca, this is Atul. I have a question for you. If they do have to provide the flares like you're asking here, what is the minimum width of the driveways that they could show on the plan?
Whatever the standard is.
But we have a standard that I think the minimum driveway width is 10, the maximum is 20. The reason that Rebecca was referring to is if we don't provide the flares when the cars want to get in and out of the driveway, it will go over the grass area, and a good portion of that area that we have reserved for trees will be paved over to a point that cannot be used by the street trees. So we'd like to see the flares provided.
Yeah, one follow-up to what you're saying, these driveways, I believe, are much wider than 10 feet. I think maybe 17 feet, which is wider than a 10-foot driveway with flares. So there is some, justification for not expanding the paving even further, given the.
You can reduce the driveway width. The other problem is that is there 18 feet from the face of the driveway to the back of the sidewalk? Or are these cars going to park in the driveway and block the sidewalk? I thought we had a policy on the minimum length of them. Or we
have a minimum length from the house to the sidewalk, to the right of way of 20 feet.
Yeah, so that's another issue that DOT has, is that basically people are going to park in the driveways and then they're going to block the sidewalks.
No, but she
because
just said
the driveway's not too long.
She just said it's 20 feet, which exceeds your minimum. So not an issue.
Okay.
So Bob, actually, if you're providing wider driveways, that is again adding more impervious? What is the reason behind having wider driveways? That
Yeah,
is
I didn't.
adding to your impervious.
May, maybe that's a way to deal with it. I'm not the engineer on it, but I think the goal was to make them double wide the whole way. Maybe there are alternatives, so as to not, get too hung up on this one issue. I think we understand where you folks at DOT are coming from. Let us look at that and get back to you. We already have to get back to you with the turn radii. So there's two things that we'll work on, and then we'll follow up with a meeting with you folks if that works.
The other issue is how wide are the alleys? The alleys can go down to 16 feet, or you don't have to go 16, but maybe 18 feet. So that's another option.
Okay.
The alleys that are fire accessible are 20, and then they're reduced where they can be.
So
It's only alley 4.
Keely, we actually had a question about that because based on the fire access plan, I'm not going to dig through all the plans to find it right now, but it seemed like all of these roads were labeled as fire access, but the plans mark these as height restricted. So theoretically, you don't need all of the alleys as access. If you're also doing height restriction, that was our understanding. Not to step on Marie's toes, but that was.
Well, she had asked for them before, but we can certainly see if we can reduce them. That would be great.
No, I did not ask for them. The issue was you came to me and said you wanted to remove the height restriction. If you do that, then the alleys are required. If you height restrict, the alleys are not required. That was your choice to make.
Well,
Marie,
we have a height limit in this project, so we probably can height restrict them then.
Great.
And Marie, that was our understanding too, is that if they height restrict the units, then they don't need the alleys. If they don't, then fire truck has to go in the alleys.
That is correct.
What's the height restriction number?
75 feet. Wow, that's high rise. Excuse me. Wow. Other projects. 27 foot to highest windowsill, including false dormers. So that's approximately 2.5-ish stories. So if you wanted to have 3 stories, or if you wanted to have any occupiable roof space, like a deck, that would be eliminated by the height restriction.
Yeah. Bob, you couldn't have a 4th floor essentially.
Okay.
You might not be able to have a 3rd floor either, depending on what your topography looks like.
Yeah.
Right.
All
and,
right,
and I think maybe that's the issue, is that the townhouses, I believe, have might not work. We'll look into the architecture.
Yeah, we'll look at that. And so that's another issue we'll follow up with the DOT people and indirectly with you, Marie.
Great. I look forward to it.
Hi, this is Billy Whalen. Also with the driveway flares, we want those shown because in the cul-de-sac, it's kind of tight back there. So we want to make sure that the flares don't overlap the property line, the extended property line. There's a couple units where that might be kind of tight. I think units 23 and 24. So we just want to see the flares on there and assure that they don't overlap.
Okay. We'll look at that then too. Yes, I'm aware of that question.
Billy, I had one quick question for you as a follow-up so the applicant can hear it too. When they show the flares on each of these single-family units, there's a sidewalk crossing all the units essentially on both sides. And so are you expecting the sidewalk to remain at grade ADA flat and the flares are essentially just paving across and the sidewalk cuts as a continuous flat surface across? Because otherwise you're gonna have a lot of ADA challenges of people getting down and up, down and up, down and up.
Yeah, the sidewalk the driveway should drop down to meet the street level. Rather than, you're asking, should there be individual ramps along the sidewalk going to the driveway? Is that?
Yeah,
Was-
we weren't,
nah.
we were not propose that, but I want to confirm that's your expectation too.
Correct. Yeah, the sidewalk would be at grade with the driveway, then the driveway would drop down to the street level.
The driveway would be at grade with the sidewalk. There's no
Mhm.
ramps for.
Correct.
And then
Yep.
the apron that's the apron detail.
Yep.
Okay. Max, you want to move on to the next one?
Yeah, so that was the majority of the preliminary plan comments. There are some that carry over to site plan that we can talk about with site plan. I just wanted to open it up, Bob or Soltez, if you guys had any additional comments, questions, and feedback.
One of the questions related to the site plan, is the amenities in this, open space, but we can
Well,
get to
well,
that.
Max is going to go through all the site plan comments. He was just asking if there were any other preliminary plan comments.
Right, I was just saying it was related to the right of way, so we'll get to that.
Yeah, so that's a good segue to roll into the site plan comments. So as Keely said, there was a comment regarding what we have shown in the cul-de-sac. We do have a recreational space shown with the comment that a recreational space will not be allowed in that area. I first wanted to ask if it's possible to have that area be a private area, and would that eliminate the issue, or if there's any additional feedback on that.
Where's the,
I'm about to pull it.
okay.
Yeah, Max, no, I mean, we would like this project to look like the same subdivision that's just approved to south of this. And we do not like to have a private area in the middle of the turnaround. And also, depending on the type of amenities you have, if you have, for example, sport facility, that is not going to be a good use and self-contained within the turnaround, and like it to be removed because of this. So that's I mean, if you have any further question, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, I understand. So would it be possible to have just a planting seating area in that location, or is it basically no recreational at all? Is the issue with we have a yard games kind of cornhole board set up in there currently with a little bit of a landscape package and a walkway? Is the issue with the actual yard games, or is it actually just having pedestrians cross the road and access that area?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question. I mean, as I mentioned, we don't think that that opening in the middle of the turnaround is large enough to accommodate sporting facilities or anything like that. But if you would like to provide seating area, benches and all that, please do not show it on the site plan. We could deal with it with a bookable agreement at a time of permit.
Okay. So we'll go back and look if it's possible to relocate that amenity elsewhere in the community.
That's two of us.
Outside the right of way.
In there, access a park.
Nope.
Next comment that I had was more of a general question regarding, sorry. Was regarding the ownership and maintenance of Old Clarksburg Road, whether that is a county maintained road or a state highway road. With the creation of new Clarksburg Road, I think we're looking for clarity on what entity actually maintains Old Clarksburg Road now.
Both of them are maintained by state, Max.
Okay, thank you. One of the next comments we had was pertaining to the location of the stormwater management facilities and microbios. I think there was a comment pertaining specifically to having basically two microbios side by side, which could impact some of the usable open space. I wanted to go into that in a little bit more detail. Currently, I see there's 3 open space areas that have kind of dual side-by-side stormwater management areas, and I'll ask Kyle to speak to it a little bit further from an engineering standpoint, but I understand that these are already at the maximum size they could be and could not be combined or really shifted. Our goal really was they sit lower than the road, and at pre-preliminary plan, one of the big layout comments we had was providing windows to parkland and open space. So if we're looking at the central open space, we wanted to basically have these areas lower on the exterior so that pedestrians and users of the property would be able to see over the stormwater management facilities into the rural open space and parkland. So we believe we're going to look back and see if we can push any of the microbios further down the slope. But looking at the area kind of to the west of the townhomes where we have an amenity space, we actually look at the stormwater management and landscape package that's associated with the water management to kind of work with the open space area. It provides some nice landscaping. We do have a nice seating area for the pedestrians and users of the property to use, and we don't believe it really interferes with the open space and really works well. We're in contrast, if you look at the open space to the right, we are only having one stormwater management facility that's off in the corner to provide that large open lawn area. So we strategically placed it to work with our open spaces and go hand in hand with what we are proposing in these areas.
Yeah, I think the biggest area of concern was these 2 areas right here, because along with the windows into the open space, access to the open space is, right behind that.
Mm-hmm.
So really the concern is that, some of these are going to be borderline blocked off by the stormwater, so pedestrian access would be impeded.
And Max, do you anticipate that any of these are deep enough that you're going to have to provide a fence around them?
No, they will not require a fence, but we can look at, as Max mentioned, we can look at maybe reshaping these or pushing them off to, one side so that it does open up potential for pedestrian access.
Yeah, so none of these stormwater facilities are structural, right?
No. Okay. Not those 2. There are two planter boxes that we're proposing, but not this location.
So there'll be no fences around them. And I think if you all can study pushing the ones that are opening up to the preserved spaces as far down the slope as possible, we would appreciate that. And then maybe studying the shape of the one that's in the central open space to make sure that the edge of that doesn't feel like it's blocked off. That's really all we are recommending you all take a look at.
And go ahead and correct me but I would say if you made them a little more features, I don't even know for me personally, I mean, yes, I hear what you're saying, like moving them would obviously create more of a visual, physical connection. But if you're also, while taking a look at all of them, making them a little more of a feature that you can still clearly move through, I mean, that's probably acceptable as well. So
we've done that on this one. I think is probably a good example of how it's part of the space, but it is not the entire space.
Or the internal block on that western side. I mean, that's like clearly more of a feature, more within the landscaping, et cetera. So I don't know, you'd have to go to that level, but doing a gesture like that could probably change the look and feel of it.
Yeah.
Understood. I appreciate that feedback.
Not a direction, just another option while you're looking at it.
The next handful of comments were from park planning pertaining to the outfall location in relation to the existing streams in the vicinity of the project. So it really looked like there was an off-site stream to the north, which was specifically referenced as having a 12-foot head cut that would require stabilization. And then additionally to the south, there was an area that apparently had multiple head cuts that would require stabilization. We definitely want to dive into this further and want to set up a separate meeting with park planning to discuss this in more detail. Currently, our plan does not show any impacts to the stream valley buffer, no wetland stream impacts. We're really staying out of sensitive areas. We're not impacting any forests. So we want to broach this subject to really keep with the spirit of our project of not impacting these environmentally sensitive areas while still addressing the 10 Mile Creek amendment. So I think it makes sense that we would get together separately and really dive into those comments in more detail.
Max, are we ready to set that meeting if the parks folks are on this call?
I think it's great. This is Henry. We definitely want to embrace that and meet on that. I've got enough different people to pull into a parks meeting that I'm not going to be able to do a time this second. But yes, let's get working on that this afternoon or whatnot.
Well, okay. I would just recommend also that in that meeting with parks, you might want to bring DPS in, because we're going to have to coordinate between planning, parks, and DPS not to alter the drainage flow of any stream or any watershed that's part of the master plan requirement, hence the planning requirement, hence DPS's involvement, and hence parkland, because it's going to be conveyed to them. So that's really a three-way conversation, with parks probably taking the lead and getting support from DPS and planning.
Makes sense to me.
Understood. And then along with that, there is an existing trail that provided access. Really, it was a utility easement that went to the out parcel 90. There's been a couple comments pertaining to restoring this area. And based on our NRI and field visits, we understand that this is really just an overgrown trail at this point, and really it's hard to even find in the field. I believe it's called out on the NRI as an unpaved or an earthen trail. I just wanted some clarity. What kind of restoration would be needed there? Right now, it's in the environmental area. It's in the park's dedication. To my knowledge, there are no existing improvements there. It's just graphically shown on the plans as a trail.
So, quick question: are we talking about a trail or the
It's
I guess I'll call it a driveway to the barn and stuff that's back here, because there is a driveway. I've not seen it with my own eyes, but is that what you're talking about?
Yes, it's referred to as a driveway, but the NRI and field visits indicate that it is an unpaved earthen trail driveway. So it's not existing impervious. And I understand that's completely overgrown, and has, it has been revegetated.
Yeah, it was a driveway many years ago, but it hasn't been used in forever. And we're creating a driveway somewhere else off the cul-de-sac to that property. So it seemed to us that going in there and doing anything would only be more disturbance rather than leaving the natural environment alone.
Well, I'll chime in here real quick. I would say, due to the compaction and the fact that it was vehicular access, makes it by definition imperviousness under the code for both DPS and park and planning, because it was used to convey automobiles and it is heavily compacted. So I do think there would need some restoration, aka soil decompaction or something to that effect along that area. I don't think it can be left as is.
Yeah, and this is Henry. Just from Parks' perspective, I'm not the expert on it, but I understand we've had staff out who's looked at it, and we're going to require it to be, treated along the lines of what Josh is talking about before we can accept it. We don't think it's natural enough state.
Okay, yeah, I would like to maybe we discuss this further in our separate meeting. I guess the applicant's fear is that we'd ultimately have to go clear forest or clear the existing vegetation that now has overgrown this trail, creating an environmental impact where one wouldn't exist otherwise. So I would like to discuss that in more detail and maybe specifically talk about the remediation that Parks would be looking for there.
Sounds good.
Just as a time check, you have 10 more minutes.
Okay, well, I'll make it quick then. I think that's really the major comments that we had that we wanted clarity on. Again, I'm going to open up to Bob and the team at Soltez to see if they needed any additional clarity on the comments.
The only thing I'll add, at the outset, someone mentioned the proposal for a path connection out to Old Clarksburg Road and eventually to New 121. We've continued to study that issue, and we will want to talk with staff about it. We were concerned about it at the excuse me, preliminary plan stage, and as we've looked at engineering of it and right of way, those concerns remain. So I don't think we're going to resolve it on a call today, but we just want to put a flag on it that we're going to have to look at that further with you.
Yeah, that's fine. This is Brett Brown, by the way. I was the one who made the comment. So yeah, feel free to reach out whenever you have some time.
Okay.
Sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there was also a comment on redistributing the amenities a little bit.
Yeah, so there was a comment pertaining to, I think it referenced the tot lot space, and it said ideally this would be centered in the community. How our amenities are currently laid out, we really don't have too much space without really expanding our LOD to provide additional amenity space. We do like having those windows to the open space in the center of the community that we would think potentially a tot lot would impede those views. And then moreover, with potentially having to relocate what I'll call the adult tot lot, the cornhole or the play space to another location, it's really going to cut into where we could potentially move the tot lot. I'm not sure if staff had any more comments pertaining to the location of the tot lot currently.
That was one of my comments, and yeah, I mean,
Can you point out?
it's so, just for everyone on the tot lot is located here, the adult tot lot is located there, so it does seem like it's kind of almost like a private area where, in recreation, if you look at any of the open space requirements, it's all about being centrally located, and the recreation aspect goes with that. It should be, accessible to the vast majority of the development as much as possible. Where here it seems like it's kind of put off to the side, and this little teardrop is, is going to kind of have like a whole private club of their own.
Hear anyone?
This is Jamie. I wanted to just ask, is there some reason why a house couldn't be where the playground is and the playground be where one of the houses is?
Jamie, we talked about this extensively at the pre-preliminary plan. The applicant really did a lot of investigation of the topography and the views out to the preserved areas, and that's how those openings ended up being where they are.
Does that include the opening where the playground is?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, theoretically, you could keep that open area, relocate the tot lot to, say, right here, and it wouldn't, diminish the views into the open space, because it is, it's a recreation area. If people are there, while they're in that space, they can enjoy views out into the open space. The goal of the, opening these views up is just so that, the entire street isn't lined with houses.
Okay, I appreciate that feedback. We'll definitely look into it further. We'd have to, the area you just called out, we want to take a look at if there was grading concerns there, slope concerns that would require significant additional grading. Where we had kind of a flatter area towards the back of the community, where we have the current tot lot. It's on the top of the hill. So that's one of the reasons why it was targeted there, and it also backs up to wooded areas. We also have the trail connecting in right to the north of that to provide connectivity for the rest of the community. But we'll absolutely take that in consideration and look into it further.
So speaking of the trail, one thing that didn't come to my mind until now is connectivity from open space A to open space B. You've got a pinch point right here between the Pulte property and this lot and I guess, what will be conveyed to the Pultes or something, where you couldn't theoretically walk from point A to point B without trespassing.
Yeah, we can look into that a little further. I'd be worried that there's really no other location just with the location of that out parcel to be able to tie in. I think our intent would be to basically tie the trail back into the community, walk through the community, and then provide another trail kind of on the southern side.
Also, I think the intent is not to dedicate that to the Pulte, that outlot, that out parcel. There's just gonna be an easement for the driveway, correct?
That's correct.
So then the HOA would be responsible for maintaining the driveway?
It could be done multiple ways. We were talking about an easement, but that could be an easement that requires Pulte to maintain it.
Okay, well, if it's going to be an easement or something else, can you please show that on the plan?
Understood.
One last comment from just because we didn't get to environmental much. This very clean plan overall. One thing I thought I put in the master plan comments, but seems to have been disappeared from e-plans, or I forgot to hit enter. Just make sure there's a conservation management plan for any areas that are outside of park dedication or rural open space. There are some open space areas that are not rural open space that would require a conservation management plan per the master plan.
Yes, we're aware of that, Josh.
Okay, just wanted I didn't get it in the comments, so I just wanted to make sure I got it on the record for you.
Thank you. And I think that's all I have for site plan. Really minimal comments on the forest conservation plan. And the only comment I did want to acknowledge was currently the limit of disturbance does impact a very small portion of the critical root zone for specimen tree 58. We're going to reevaluate that and see if we can avoid impacts to that critical root zone to avoid a variance requirement.
That would be great.
And we did ask for an exhibit showing the high visibility side and even some back units on this plan because of the setbacks and things. So we look forward to reviewing that with you and working on that.
Yes,
Yeah.
we saw that as well.
Great. Thanks, Bob.
And I believe there's some comments on the architecture as well that I would like to get with the team following this DRC to get a little more clarity on, and then work through it together.
Sounds great.
And I just wanted to ask one question about maybe somebody made a comment on this and I just haven't looked at it, but the way the sidewalks connect where streets A and B come together. Jonathan, can you zoom in on either of those intersections? That
Is it
sharp angle, yeah, that's a little bit of an odd connection, the way it necks down to this. How come that's not aligned a little bit better, or is this just kind of a general idea of what it'll look like once it's paved? So it just seems that's not a smooth transition if you're going down that sidewalk. And then on the other intersection, there was no way to get across the street going north to south, and I didn't know if that was a standard intersection thing. So I just wanted to point it out as something that doesn't seem like the friendliest design. But I'm not the transportation planner. And then maybe he's made comments.
Yeah, Jamie, that was one of our comments as well, that
Okay.
in those intersections, you would like to introduce a crossing so we minimize the amount of jaywalkers. So, so I think due to the length of that area, it would make sense to have another crossing north to south, as you mentioned.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for your time, folks. We'll be back.
Thank you all.
All right.
Thanks for
Thank
everyone's
you.
time. Have a great day.
Thank you.
This is a discussion item for Wawa Burtonsville. I'm Christina Sorrento. I'm the chief of the intake and regulatory. And this is being recorded in live stream just as we do with all our DRC items. Mark Beal is your lead, so I will leave it to him to kind of through any of the issues we should discuss, but feel free to ask any questions. Mark.
Morning, for the record, Mark Beal, of County Zoning Planning. This is the Burtonsville Wawa project. Right now, it is currently a gas station, 7-Eleven, and a bedding barn in this location, and they will be demolishing the bedding barn and redoing the gas station to a Wawa with additional fuel station and bigger retail area. The meeting is yours for any questions.
Thank you. Ed Harris with Clerk Charlene Brewer. With the team from GLW, Kevin Foster and Tim Longfellow, Tony Chang, the property owner, and Nick Dryban, traffic consultant. We had several topics that we wanted to discuss. The first one had to do with, there was a recommendation about the access easement, which was intended, you can see it on the left-hand side of the screen, it's intended to promote the interparcel access. It's not a master plan public road. It's not a master plan, as best as I can, master planned anything. Really came up in discussion of the rezoning of the property. But the comment, and it's currently shown as 40 feet width. And the comment was, widen it to 60 for accommodate a public street.
So that actually, I think that might be in the master plan because it came up when I was dealing with the McDonald's next door. There's supposed to be a connection that basically runs behind all of those buildings, not a road necessarily, but basically to minimize curb cuts.
There's language in the master plan.
For an interparcel access. And I looked and I did double check right before I came over here, checked the Burtonsville master plan, transportation section, and a couple other sections. And there's a number of plans that show existing proposed roads. I did not see it. So
it's not necessarily a roadway. It's necessary. It's an interparcel.
Okay, and there's a distinction between an interparcel access way and a public street.
And SHA they went through a whole planning process with the community where they presented like alternatives. That's my report. And it kind of showed a J hook in the back around between the two properties.
No, it actually went right into McDonald's. Didn't go around the properties. Yeah, it went right. It was to serve McDonald's. That's what that sketch was for. Not to create a long road down all of the parcels.
The one for SHA from SHA.
I was involved in all that.
You're across the street too, so you know.
Yeah, we were involved in all that meetings with SHA, and the commitment was that it was just going to be to get McDonald's out to the light, not to create some back end road to mimic what was on the other side of 198. That's master plan. That loop road in the back there, and because if you pull this out, there's actually a public road kind of coming down Tolston, comes down here, right here.
Yeah.
And all those pieces back up to that.
Yeah, so it'd be duplicative.
Right. I mean, that's their future access is right there. But it's all residential, so nobody wanted it. It made the most sense, but it never got any traction.
Yeah, I remember from the master plan that the Tolson people were very vocal in terms of wanting to maintain their residential character. They didn't want any influx of commercial traffic from the roadway bleeding onto their properties, which led to the recommendations for those two parcels to the south there. And we discussed this during the LMA about what was happening with the properties behind and the impacts on Tolson. So I think the interparcel connector, master plan wise, looking at is to keep any future potential traffic off of Tolson coming through. So I'll leave it at that. I don't see a roadway. I don't think a roadway was planned. I'm saying it was meant to make sure that there was interparcel commercial access.
And I agree. And there's a binding element in the LMA saying a 40-foot width access way, and that is what we're providing. When I saw 60 feet for a public street, I was taken aback, and obviously that's a whole different character of.
Yeah, you remember where did the 60-foot comment come from? I'm sorry, I'm not up to date on this project.
It's planning comment number 5 under
Transportation.
Yeah. Chris? Chris, are you on here?
Says the access easement should be widened to 60 feet to accommodate the potential for a future public road. 60 foot in width is the minimum dimension.
Okay. We can follow up that.
We'll follow
Okay,
up with
okay,
Sorry.
thank you. That's fine. It just took me aback, obviously. The next one was one that we did anticipate, which it sounds like this issue of the right in, right out, the eastern entrance is still unresolved, waiting for SHA's comments. But I want to turn that over to Nick, who wants to make some general remarks about that. We may need a further follow-up on that issue.
Yeah, good morning. Nick Dribbin with Lenhart Traffic. I guess kind of given the audience here, I know Chris isn't here, and I'm looking at the names. I don't see anybody from SHA either.
Quasi was on.
Just is Quasi on?
He was earlier.
Okay.
He had to jump off. It's in the chat.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, just kind of briefly, there was a comment from DOT stating that they recommend against the secondary access point. No further detail in that, just a recommendation against. There was a comment from Chris Van Alstyne from Transportation saying that the access point needs continued consideration or something along those lines. And we haven't heard from SHA yet. So I think this sort of general acknowledgement and I guess question for DOT would be, I think taking it at face value, their recommendation is just that. I mean, ultimately, it will be SHA's call on this, given that 198 is an SHA roadway. And I think in this forum, we're just sort of asking for ongoing consideration to allow that secondary access point. We think for a number of reasons, primarily, the circulation of fuel trucks. The volume of pedestrians and bicyclists in this section of 198 is very low. There are no residences within a third of a mile that would, in terms of a walking path, and within a half mile, I didn't count them exactly, but it's probably less than 50 residences. This is the existing counts, future. We see this as it's a very low volume of pedestrians and bicyclists along 198. And so I think to restrict that access and have fuel trucks having to turn around within the site, where you're going to have pedestrians crossing between the fuel canopy and the front door, parking spaces in the front door, I think you're actually going to make the conflicts worse by restricting that access. And there are a number of other considerations that are in the traffic study. Again, I'm not sure we have sort of the right forum here for getting into the weeds of this, but just wanted to kind of keep the door open for future conversations on access points.
So Mark, here's we want to have a transportation follow-up meeting.
Yes, exactly.
I'm not texting. I'm taking notes because I left my notepad upstairs.
Do you need a pen and pencil?
Thank you.
This is Rebecca from DOT. The problem with the second access point is the design of it. It's regardless of how many vehicles are there, once we put it in, we're never going to be able to change it. So that's one of the things, and SHA won't comment on it until they don't usually comment on plans. So I believe it's up to planning to decide. But the design of it should be modified at a minimum to not have a quick write out so that people don't look and they just go and it should, so at a minimum, it should be designed better than it was, not to vehicles. And I don't think that the number of bike and pedestrians on this site or adjacent or using this site should be consideration for how we design something.
No, agreed, Rebecca. If it's design refinements, I think that's certainly something that we would be very open to. I mean, frankly, it's the fuel truck circulation that we're trying to accommodate here. And so even if it were just a right out, and that was modified to make it less of I think maybe the angle, the sort of the high speed angle is what you're looking at. If we could maybe refine that and tighten up the radius a little bit to still accommodate the fuel trucks, but make it a little bit more squared up to 198. Is that kind of what you're looking at?
Yes, and I would say the other thing why DOT has a comment on it is because it will be a bike facility that DOT will have to maintain because it's in the state right away. So yeah. We're looking at that's our angle from it. Did you provide truck circulation through the site and show us?
We certainly can.
That should be provided so we can take a look at it.
Sure.
I mean, you have a very wide roadway there. It's what, 1, 2, 3, 4 lanes, basically. If you include I guess there's a turn lane. So you should be able to make that more, so it's slower for vehicles coming out of there.
That makes sense to me, Rebecca.
Nick, this is Deepak here. To add to that, the TIs is still under review. We would like to see the counts coming out of that driveway as well, to make sure everything works safely. So it's still under review. So
okay, yep, and that information is certainly in the TIS, and we know that those comments are forthcoming from you and from really Park and Planning and SHA as well. So we'll. Again, I guess for the purpose of this meeting, we sort of know this is something that we want to continue to revisit. We'll look at the design, and as comments come in on the study, we'll kind of go from there.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thank you. The feedback is really helpful, Rebecca and Deepak. Thank you.
There was a comment about, could we take another look or consider either pivoting the building 90 degrees and/or moving it closer to the road. Wawa spent a lot of time trying to figure out what works for them at this site. That's how we ended up with what we're proposing. I think this is the best accommodation to accommodate their needs, but also reflective of some of the master plan provisions, the 40-foot access, inner access road, et cetera. There was a comment, several comments about no bikeway along 198 because the shared path, which needs to be a minimum of 10, we're actually 11 feet, will accommodate. So we will make the adjustments for that. And then our final comment, I want to bring this may have just been an oversight. So there was a comment about us needing to go through preliminary plan, which we know. We also need to go through site plan here because we were a floating zone rezoning. So we'll pursue that with the preliminary plan, but I wanted to make sure everyone had that on their checklist as we move forward. So with that, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think we probably, after we take another look at that entrance, probably would be helpful, I think, to have a follow-up.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense though to get the comments on the study in first.
Okay.
And then I don't think it's something that happen next. Have those we can.
Give a little bit more time since this is a conditional use than say the 10 days or whatever it is for a normal comparison. But we can continue to work through that.
Okay, good. Is there anything else from anyone on our team? Okay. Thank you, very helpful.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
Carol.